looks like the clouds are sticking around today. No rain though, at least at the moment anyways. And what's going on today? It's kind of interesting reading this where apparently it says Verizon was closing down a drone company. I was like, hey, what's this about? This one here says Verizon will shut down Portland drone company Skyward. Portland drone company Skyward will close down next month. Corporate parent Verizon announced this week. Verizon bought the Portland startup in 2017, aiming to connect Skyward's drone management technology to the telecommunication company's wireless service business. Skyward grew from fewer than 30 employees at the time of its sale to more than 80 in 2020. Verizon didn't explain Skyward's closure, except to say in a statement that, quote, "This decision is about market agility and ensuring that Verizon continues to focus on areas that provide both near and mid-term growth opportunities." So I guess it just wasn't worth their time ultimately? Is it just because of things like competition and all that? It says the company indicated it will focus on ground robotics instead. Verizon said it will shut off Skyward services by June 30th. "We are working with employees and expect some will stay with the Verizon robotics. Others will transfer to other positions within Verizon," the company said. Well, that's kind of interesting, going from aerial to ground. I thought it would be the opposite usually, huh? Especially during these times in terms of, I guess, potential. Then again, I guess robotics are becoming a big thing as well. Like with things like that Spot robot dog and all that, would that all be related? And then I was reading this, where apparently I guess the war is still going on between Ukraine and Russia, but this one here says small drones are giving Ukraine an unprecedented edge. From surveillance to search and rescue, consumer drones are having a huge impact on the country's defense against Russia. By the sounds of it, it seems like they're using it more for monitoring purposes, basically what you've been reading in my opinion. It says, in the snowy streets of North Ukrainian town of Trostyanets, the Russian missile system fires rockets every second. Tanks and military vehicles are parked on either side of the blasting artillery system, positioned among houses near the town's railway system. The weapon is not working alone though. Hovering tens of meters above it and recording the assault is a Ukrainian drone. The drone isn't a sophisticated military system, but a small commercial machine that anyone can buy. Since Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine at the end of February, drones of all shapes and sizes have been used by both sides in the conflict. At one end of the scale, large military drones that can be used for aerial surveillance and to attack targets on the ground. In contrast, small commercial drones can be flown by people without any specific training and carried around in a suitcase-sized box. While both types of drones have been used in previous conflicts, the current scale of small commercial drone use in Ukraine is unprecedented. Funny enough, actually, in this article, that's what stood out to me, where they're saying so many people without any specific training are using, for example, let's just say, I don't know, off-the-shelf consumer drones, which brings up the point again, there's so many people, like say here, that fear-monger and promote over-the-top regulations or trying to imply that something, let's just say, I don't know, like a DJI drone requires tens of thousands of dollars in training when in reality it's just get out there, fly it, and start practicing. I mean, that's a classic example in my opinion. It's not like a huge manned aircraft. Because ultimately it feels like it's more about control overall in terms of restricting this person or that person just because someone else wants to be the only one to be able to, let's say, use the technology or whatever. Which makes me think, because this was actually really fascinating. During these times, there were a lot of lockdowns, for example, vaccine passports, which are all kind of going away here. But apparently there's a lawsuit here, I guess in the province, where people were, in a sense, suing the government, saying, I guess, it's unconstitutional, for example, with things like mandates. So apparently it seemed like, I guess the government at first tried to get it dismissed, but I guess a judge is allowing this to go forward, which will be kind of interesting actually. This one says, COVID-19 court rejects bid by BC government to throw out case against vaccination orders. A BC judge has rejected a bid by Dr. Bonnie Henry to have a legal challenge to several of her COVID-19 health orders thrown out of court. A petition filed by an advocacy group argues the provincial health officer's orders requiring vaccinations for healthcare workers are unconstitutional and should be set aside. The Canadian Society for Advancement of Science and Public Policy also alleges the order fails to provide reasonable exemptions and accommodations for people with religious objections, vaccination risk, immunity from prior injection, and recent negative COVID testing. Lawyers for Henry say that the orders are reasonable measures aimed at limiting transmission in high-risk public settings, protecting public health and vulnerable populations, and safeguarding the healthcare system. The orders implemented in mid-October say only double-vaccinated people may provide services in a range of BC healthcare settings. I would imagine, just in terms of the argument, that's probably one point that would be brought up, because during these times, everyone now says just because, for example, someone's vaccinated doesn't mean you can't spread it and all that. So I guess that would kind of be the argument. And it says the society says that it requested a reconsideration in November for a broad class of healthcare workers, but that healthcare authorities refused on the basis that it sought an exemption on non-medical grounds. As to why they wanted to get it dismissed, it says lawyers for Henry argued in court that the society's petition, which was filed in the BC Supreme Court, should be dismissed because the petitioners lacked the proper legal standing. The society argued that it should be granted public interest legal standing. The legal test for whether to grant public interest standing involves examining whether there is at least one serious issue involved in the case and whether the petitioner is affected by the legal action or has genuine interest in the outcome. I guess based on this, the judge determined there was, some kind of cause and all that. It says in his ruling on the dismissal application, Justice Simon Covell said the orders directly affected members of a defined and identifiable group in a serious way that, at least on the surface, affects their charter rights. This raises substantial questions that meet the threshold of clearly not frivolous, said the judge. I guess to me it'll be fascinating to see all the documents or whatever they use to justify whatever procedure that they implemented. Because, for example, just like all that trucker news and so forth, what did they use to actually justify, for example, those quote emergency powers? I was just reading, apparently they're not giving out all the details. So what do you have to hide per se, correct? So that would be the most fascinating thing here. Let's see all, the medical data and so forth you use to justify like this and that. Because again, one of the odd things are everyone pretty much says now, regardless if you're vaccinated or not, everyone can still get it and spread it. So in terms of that argument of reducing transmission, I don't know, you'd have to show the data and see how that's justified in that sense. So that would be the most fascinating thing. So it's just a glass, basically. There's nothing wrong with the camera. You don't need to replace the camera.
We don't do the partial repairs.
Which one?
We don't do a partial repairs because after changing this back glass, right?
Yeah.
It's coming with this glass is coming with the back glass.
Yeah.
Once you've done the back glass repair, we have to run a quality testing to make sure there is no issue with the camera. Just because of the glass can scratch it.
Yeah.
So they will make sure there is no issues. If they find an issue, that time you have to replace the camera too.
How much does it cost and how long can you be it?
So 92 plus tax.
For the glass, right? Or is that camera? Just the glass? Okay. 92 plus tax. How long does it take?
How long?
Yeah.
I have to take a look first they have the parts or not. If they don't have any ability parts to use for the repair, it's going to take a couple of hours, maybe 2-3 hours.
Yeah, so you come by earlier.
All right, see you guys later.